Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Conn. I'm delighted to say that we've got a packed studio for you tonight. Keith Jackson's here. Keith, how's it going?
We don't have a packed studio. I'm in it on my own, as per.
A packed virtual studio, I should say. But Keith, how's it going?
Aye, not bad, mate. You?
I'm very good, thanks. Record Sports, Andy Newport's here as well. Andy?
Very well, thanks for having me. Nice to be on.
And of course, the one and only Des Roache, ex-Grade 1 referee. Des, how are you?
I'm very good, Daniel. Good to be on with you guys.
I love Des' segments. Keith knows that, so it's a pleasure to have you on. And I think, Keith, that's probably the best place to start, is with Des.
Yeah, let's get right in about it.
Here we go. Hearts have issued a statement this afternoon. Let me read out a little bit of this to you. While we give credit to Aberdeen for making the most of their opportunity in the 118th minute to win the tie, we take issue with the refereeing decision immediately preceding it. It's the club's view that neither the yellow card issued to Cammy Devlin in the match was warranted, and we should not have been put in a position to have to finish the game with 9 men, which directly affected the outcome. Saturday came in the back of other decisions this season that have not gone in our favour. That's just a little taste of Hearts' fairly scathing statement today. But Des, what did you make of the Cammy Devlin decision yesterday?
I thought that. Let's just go into it then. I thought John Beaton made an error. I don't think the second yellow card was justified. I think that Cammy Devlin made a genuine attempt to play the ball. The Aberdeen player, forgive me, I can't remember the name that was coming from behind. It's just a foul, right? If it's a foul, even if it is a foul, right, it's just a foul. Not every foul is a yellow card. Not every physical contact is a yellow card. What is Cammy Devlin meant to do there? Now, if I'm a manager and I'm a coach, I'm asking my player to try and clear that ball in a defensive situation. And as a referee, I'm looking at it. Maybe I'm looking at it differently from John Beaton. But at that moment in time, the player's made a genuine attempt to play the ball. He's not had any intent to make undue contact with the player. It's not, for me, it's not a foul, and John Beaton has made an error.
Des, is this not where the weakness of VAR comes in? And that obviously you can't review the yellow cards, but we're talking about an incident here where you've got it's a potentially game-defining decision. It's a second yellow that leads to a red. Is there not an argument we said in those circumstances that VAR should be able to intervene there, and at least, as you say, we know the threshold in terms of what clear and obvious is, and a lot of times if decisions are made on the pitch, a lot of times they'll tend to go, if there's a reasonable cause for it, they don't overturn it. But I'm just thinking that in a larger sense here, is there not an argument that said that when we're talking about VAR, that we're talking, especially second yellows, that they should fall under the ability to be reviewed by the VAR team?
And I completely agree with you, because it does have a fundamental impact upon the game. Because Hearts are then not even going down to 10 men, they're going down to 9 men at that moment in time. And what's the words that we always hear? Clear and obvious error. Now, if there's a yellow card offence, I understand that under the current laws of the game, a yellow card can't be considered a clear and obvious error. But it is a clear and obvious error, and it should be getting involved. I really think that's an area that has to be looked at. Now, I was always told as a referee, if you're given a second yellow card which results in a red card, everybody in the world has to know it's a second yellow card, and that's why the player is being sent off. That's how you sell the decision, because everybody goes, oh, he's already been yellowed, that's stupid. He's got to go off. See, for that one, I could guarantee amongst the four of us, none of us agree that that's a second yellow card.
So what do you think then, Des? You put yourself in John Beaton's shoes and put us in the mind of a referee, or in John Beaton's mind. Is he doing that to, sometimes referees are accused of wanting to be the star of the show, of, getting overly involved in matches, becoming overly officious. Has he done that purely to grab headlines, to take a player out off the pitch? Is that a thing? Because we hear about it all the time.
Certainly hope not. I used to always say that if I could go up the road, I used to always get called in my old job. I used to get called Mr. Roach 6, and I used to say, "What? And the kids used to say to me in school, aye, because you got a 6 in the Sunday Mail at the weekend. Right? And I was happy with that. I'm delighted with that, right? Because that means nobody's talking about me. But if a referee is trying to get himself into the headlines, that is wholly wrong. Wholly wrong. That's not what you're there to do. You're there to do the job. It's like military precision, doesn't it? You would say, Andy, you want to get in, get out, up the road, and nobody knows you.
I really suspect that that's not the case. I kind of know a bit about what John Beaton's been through down the years, some of the things he's had to put up with. I suspect he wants a quiet life the best of the times, and
of course.
I just tend to think it's a genuine mistake. It's one of those ones, you know.
And that's fine. And that's fine. Listen, we all make errors. There's never going to be a game where you don't make an error. Players make numerous errors through games. We'll make errors. Certainly not think that a referee could go into a game thinking I'm going to make a decision to get a headline. If it does, it's very shallow.
Well, credit where it's due to John Beaton. He's the first decision, the first red card. I thought it was spot on, and people were analysing it and debating it. For me, it was a red card. Des?
No, absolutely correct. No problem with that whatsoever. He's the defender has went in there. The sole intention is to stop that promising attack and take the player out. Players get, I know people say it's maybe like 30 yards to run into, but it is the 9 obvious goal scoring opportunity. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, 100% correct decision.
What about yesterday, Des, in the Celtic game? James Forrest was awarded a penalty late on. I know it didn't have any tangible effect on the outcome, but it was quickly reversed after Callum Scott went to the VR telly.
It wasn't quickly reversed, Daniel.
I was going to say that, aye, sorry. But how did you see it, Des? Did you think it was a penalty?
I've got to admit, at that first viewing, I did think it was a penalty when I seen it, because you can see the imbalance that James Forrest had. On review, I'm quite happy that it was overturned. I don't think there was sufficient enough contact to make that a penalty. I just think that James Forrest has turned left, turned right, and he's moving around as he's done for all his career. So, I don't think St John's were guilty of a penalty in that moment in time.
Did you agree with that, Keith? I can't even remember yesterday.
I don't think we talked about it. I thought at full speed, I thought it looked soft. I was surprised that they gave the penalty, and the replays, I think, vindicated that. I think they made the right decision. They got there in the end. But this is the problem with VAR, isn't it, Des? You know, Andy's mentioned there about, you know, a yellow card, a second yellow card. Should that go to VAR? Yeah, that I like the idea, Andy. I'm fully with you. The problem that you've got is when you go to VAR, you don't know if you're going to get the right decision anyway. And Des, let me take you back, rewind the clock to Thursday night in Bilbao. I mean, that goes to VAR. The Dessers penalty claim goes to VAR, doesn't it? And they don't see that it's a penalty kick.
I think that is probably up there with the most appalling decisions that I've seen this year, if not in entirety. I mean, Dessers has got the shirt ripped off him. If you're telling me that there's no contact there, that is the most blatant evidence of contact. It's the most blatant use of a penalty, and that's why VAR is there. So I'm really, really shocked that the match officials never took action at that moment in time, because that's as big a penalty as you're ever going to see.
Surely all they need to do at that point, VAR, is just say, come and have a look.
And they did, and the referee still never took it.
That's right. They did. You're right. Annoyingly.
So I mean, what else can you say? You can only lead the horse to water, can't you?
Des, can I get your take on one? The other incident at Hampden yesterday was obviously the Mackenzie Cup goal that gets chopped off. I think it's a push on Adam Ida in the build-up to it. Now, I might be wrong here. I was obviously at the game yesterday, and the screens we've got at our desk in the press box, obviously you get to see the replays. And for me, the issue with that, and I might be wrong here, there might have been another replay shown, but the ones I saw, it was 3 or 4 replays of the 2 hands in the back to Adam Ida, and it was shown in slow motion. And I'm sitting going, well, I'm not entirely sure of what force is in this push. And listen, it well have been a two-handed shove that knocks him clearly down. But I remember going to a briefing that the SFA offered to the media at the start of last season and raising this point with some of the guys, Crawford Allen, that involved, that a lot of the times you see these replays and they are slowed right down to show you the point of impact, of course. But what you then do when you continually show something at half speed is you lose all the force into it. And I think for me that's crucial, especially in an incident like that one where it's whether or not the push is sufficient enough to knock him over. I'm not sure. Again, I'll hold my hands up if there was a full replay, a full speed replay shown. But I'm just wondering your take on how sometimes the images are presented to the referee when they go over at the side of the pitch, whether or not that is sufficient, whether or not that what they're showing is the true images of each incident.
I think when you look at a still image, Andy, is that you can't tell the force that's put into it. That at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Personally speaking, I think it was a foul. I don't think it was the worst foul I've seen in my life, but there's enough in it for enough in it to be given. But see, when you again, I hate still images because football isn't played in still. Football's played at a fast and ferocious pace. And that's how we have to make calls at that moment in time. So when you see it, is it the worst foul? I didn't think it was. How much ferocity and force was behind it? Again, I don't think it was overly harsh, but I think it was enough. And referees, I mean, let's be honest, if any of us were called across, you look at a picture and make a decision, and you can look at that picture 5, 6, 7, 8 frames later, and it might look different. It's a difficult call to make, so I wouldn't be criticising the refereeing team for that.
See, just on going back to Dessers quickly, Des. I mean, you mentioned still images. This one is pretty damning, right? And to clarify, I think we're all in agreement. Certainly think it was a foul and a penalty. But just to play devil's advocate, we had a couple of people commenting saying that the new directive at referees is that he's only pulled the shirt for a split second. He's only kind of caught it. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. You remember, Keith, there was a guy after the game saying that they've been advised that if it's just a quick pull, it's basically not a foul.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where that information was coming from, to be honest with that. When you pull somebody's shirt inside the penalty box, it's a foul, it's a penalty kick, and especially when you rip a big chunk out of it.
Aye,
so
that's fair enough.
Des,
I mean, is there any? Basically, what I'm trying to say is, how can a referee of our team look at that and interpret it in any other way?
They can't. I think it was materially material. I think it was materially wrong. If you're pulling somebody,
so now you're criticising the Custody kit now, the material.
Don't go down that route. I've seen the texts as well. It was it's a penalty kick. The referee and the VAR team have made it an absolute howler on that one.
That for me just makes it VAR even more frustrating. But what's the point in having it if they're just going to ignore
and that brings me back, Daniel, my original point, what Andy was saying, but second yellow cards, there's the problem. There's an obvious problem here. If between them, the VAR and the officials still can't arrive at the right decision, and unfortunately, it's happened too often this season.
And it's wrong. It's wrong because listen, VAR's not going away, right? VAR's here and it's going to stay. It's going to be part of our game going forward. It was like numerous years ago when a fourth official was brought in for the first time. VAR has been brought in. This is going to be here. So it's about the training and the education. Just get it right. Do you know what I mean? I'm sorry, I might be very simplistic, but just get it right. It's like the plain as nose in your face. If it looks wrong, it is wrong.
Yeah, we could get Willie Collum to send that out in a wee short, sweet memo to our officials throughout the land, and we'll be in a better place. Just get it right, guys. Any chance?
Aye, exactly.
And I think if we can maybe get a petition going, to get Des as the man in the middle on the 4th of May at Ibrox. That'd be good. I'd quite enjoy that.
Fancy it, Des?
I think you'd be waiting a long time for that phone call to come.
We could do a hotline live from the referee's changing room. That'd be good. I'd like that.
Get mic'd up for the game. That'd be interesting.
The record Roache's refs hotline.
Robo Ref Roach. That's what we need.
Des, it's always a pleasure having you on the Hotline Live. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
No problem at all, guys. No problem
Thanks,
at all.
Des.
I'll speak
Happy
to you
Easter.
soon.
Cheers,
Yeah,
Des.
happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Des Roache there, giving us his thoughts. The other thing, Keith, though, that I have to move on to is your column today.
Oh, yeah.
Record Sport Online. I know, or I assume, Andy, you'll have a take on this as well. It's regarding Barry Ferguson and the moment you think that he realised he's not going to get the Rangers job. Just thought it was really interesting.
Well, look, do you know what? There's people saying that, he still sees himself as being in with a puncher's chance of landing his dream job, and it would be the dream job for him. But that's a distortion of the truth. It's not the case. Barry Ferguson has felt since losing at home to Hibs that he was very unlikely to be in contention to get the job. And he's I think he's come to terms with that over the period. He may be wrong, by the way. I mean, who's to say that he's right? If the American owners come in, they're up against it in terms of the timing for next season already. They may still turn around and say, look, could you carry this thing for the next year or whatever? It might still happen, but Barry Ferguson doesn't actively think that he's under consideration for the job, and to say so is just plainly wrong. And that's the fact, and it's been that way. So what was the Hibs game? The start of April. I think he's been sort of having to internalise it since then.
I mean, Andy, particularly if he beats Celtic again at Ibrox, I would say that he's got to be still being with a chance of getting the job.
Yeah, a chance. I mean, I think he's right. I mean, I think we wrote in the paper yesterday, we did in this morning's paper, the jury thing that we do in the paper. We were asked a similar question. I kind of agreed with Keith. I think he had to have done something remarkable, and I think in his case it was winning the Europa League, and that was always going to be a huge task for him. I think that's the only thing that is going to change perhaps perceptions around him, just the lack of experience he had. He had to come in and show that he was a remarkable candidate. But listen, I agree with Keith entirely. I've asked him enough times. I've sat enough press conferences after games and tried to get out of him his thoughts on, taking the job on full time. And no point has he ever said, yes, I'm desperate for it. I want this job. As we've seen other caretaker managers do. So he's always insisted he was just there to the end of the season. His job was to come in and steady the ship and get the team through the end of the season when changes would be made. Listen, of course, he could have put himself in the conversation had things panned out differently. I don't think that's going to happen now. I certainly think there's a role from there if he wants it in terms of the coaching role. I think
he won't take that, Andy.
I agree. I've got no doubt that he won't want to play second fiddle to some other manager, but I think there's a role there. I think it can be useful. I think we need one thing that Rangers haven't had over the last number of years is somebody to set standards in terms of just what it means to play for this club and the attitude, the approach you need. I think that is the one thing that he can offer, whoever it is comes in. Fully agree with you that saying that he would be perfect for that fit and him wanting that role was two different things. I think he obviously hinted that last Thursday in Bilbao that if it isn't to be him, and again, he wasn't one saying it would be him, that he'd be quite happy to go back to his ambassadorial role. So, but yeah, listen, if he gets a result against Celtic, listen, I think it would mean people would look back on his time in charge with a certain level of fondness. But listen, he was handed a nightmare challenge, frankly. He's a team that was already double digits behind Celtic, a squad that really isn't fit for purpose and injuries mounting up. And, to get some of the results he's had, he can look back on that with pride. But the reason why results haven't gone his way since he took over aren't the fault of Barry Ferguson. These are long-rooted, pre-existing issues at the club that the club haven't been able to deal with for 3-4 years now. And, it looks like this summer, yet again, we're talking about rebuilds at Rangers, but this looks like, obviously, with the takeover coming in, it's going to be the biggest of the lot. You're talking about a new board, a new chairman, a new CEO, a new sporting director, new manager, possibly a raft of new players. It's whether or not even that's all going to be enough to get them to a competitive level for next season, that remains to be seen. But the one thing you can be guaranteed is that Rangers, how they look now, as long as this all goes through, and as obviously we've been reporting over the last few weeks, that we're still absolutely confident that it is going to go through, it's going to look entirely different come first day of the season in July.
Keith, before I bring you back in, we've got some comments coming in on this. Plenty of comments, and if you're watching at home, you want to get involved, please do so. Rangers Easy OK says, love Fergie, always will, but he's not good enough to be our manager going forward. His subs in Bilbao were baffling. We were all over the place after that. Need a more experienced manager in the summer. Hoopsaholic says, Barry said judgment results and failed to deliver. If he'd taken the 13-point deficit and halved it, he'd have given himself a chance. P. McLaughlin says, Ferguson, McCann, Dodds would maybe be a good backroom team for McInnes or a Russell Martin. And Darren says Gerrard did set a standard again after he won the league and the board let him down. And I think we can very quickly see off the back of this the latest odds for the next permanent Rangers manager, which we've got here, guys. Steven Gerrard is the 8-13 favourite. Obviously, Russell Martin's in there as well. Barry Ferguson down at 8-1. Look, a couple of people mentioning Gerrard here, Gerrard coming home. Steven Gerrard, would he? What do you guys make of that? I just don't A, see it happening, and B, would he be the right man?
He's done nothing since he left Ibrox, which would suggest that he's the right man. I think Celtic were going for 10 in a row that season when Gerrard won the league with Rangers, and Celtic imploded. And yes, you still need to give Rangers the credit for getting the job done. And certainly Steven Gerrard improved Rangers. But for me, look, do you know what? I've just said there that Barry Ferguson doesn't see himself as a kind of runner and rider now that it's coming on to the final furlong. But for me, he's probably everything that Rangers need in terms of, do they need to go down another path and another guy with another idea about how the future should look for Rangers? I actually think they need dragged back and restored. And I think the guys that are in there just now, because of their experience, because they know the standards, because they know what it took to make Rangers competitive in their own backyard, they're ideally placed to make those calls. They've seen the squad close up. They know exactly where the flaws are, and there are many. And they'll have their own ideas about how best to fix them. And we are moving fast towards the summer and the start of next season. And I think you've got guys in there right now that have very clear ideas about what's required over the course of the summer. So you don't go down that path. You bring in somebody else new to the whole thing, has to assess the squad first and foremost, has to bring back the same players that weren't good enough and haven't been good enough, and that the current management team realise and have identified as not being good enough. Well, somebody else will need to go through that process at that point. And then you need to start trying to move ones out and bring, more in, more reinforcements in. I just think, I think the American takeover is going to be good for Rangers in the long term. But in the here and the now of it, I think they've got a real summer of unrest and just so much on their plate. It's starting to look really difficult to envisage how you can bring somebody into this, sit them down and say, right, you need to start rocking now in terms of being ready and to be competitive against Celtic at the start of next season. I just think that the best chance of doing that might well be to stick with the guys that are already in there.
Personally, I would agree with that. Rebel says if the takeover happens, Rangers need a headline manager to compete with Brendan Rodgers. Darren says Russell Martin, hell no. Andy, of the names that are in that kind of runners and riders in the odds. Is there any? Well, to me, there's none that really particularly.
It's all guesswork, Dan.
I know it is guesswork, to be fair, but there's no names that stand out to me as, he'd be really good. I mean, Russell Martin, good coach, but I don't know.
I'm not particularly sure that the manager is necessarily the be-all and the end-all when it comes to this. What's more important to Rangers, and has been the big issue over the last 4 or 5 years, has been recruitment. You know, that's what Rangers should be focused on. Is you're going to bring in a coach, somebody who can get the team lined up, playing in a system and playing in a manner that is acceptable. But it doesn't matter. You can bring in Pep Guardiola, you can bring in Jurgen Klopp, you can bring in Jose Mourinho right now, and with this sort of disjointed, really ill-fitting squad that Rangers have right now, they still won't get a tune out of them. And so what Rangers need to do going forward is make sure that the players that they sign are successes, because far too often Rangers make signings, especially for a lot of money, and they're not a success. I mean, you're just looking through the squad right now. I mean, Cyril Dessers, £4.5 million. Yeah, okay, he's almost 50 goals over 2 years, but again, we go back to what should he have scored? 60, 70? Should he be closer to that? Nadim Bayrami, £3.5 million. Is he worth that? Oscar Cortez, £4.5 million we're going to have to pay this summer.
Madness.
Still have no idea if he's a good player or not, because he's
I'll be
played
getting my
so
lawyers
long,
all
he's
over that
never injured,
contract.
and whenever he does come in, he's half fit, and so I can go on and on. This is the issue that Rangers have. They're wheeling and dealing, making sort of either these £3-4 million signings, which is a really hard market to shop in to get quality, because it's you're buying guys that aren't good enough for top leagues, or you're buying on potential, and it's a hard market to get a grasp on. And then you're looking at free transfers, and even they haven't had the best luck with those. So for me, that is the number. The manager, yeah, it's an important one, but it's getting the players in. That's what Celtic have done far and away. They've been much better at than Rangers have. They sign guys and their successes. Yeah, the occasional one might take time. You're looking at Nicholas Kuhn. I mean, even speaking to Annie Engels yesterday at Hampden after the game, and he's had his criticism, but there's no doubt that's a player. He's going to be a guy that, for big money, that the longer he goes, the more he gets acclimatised to Celtic and Scottish football, he's going to be a success. And I think you can see his quality in Europe. So that's what Rangers need to be aspiring to do. Just the sheer, you can go through year after year, there's 4 or 5 guys that they spent decent money on that just do not deliver on the investment they put in. So that's where they go. As for likes of Steven Gerrard, I'm told it's unlikely. I'm told that, I think there's other things going on in the background there in terms of tax implications and things like that for him leaving the Middle East. But I think that would be unlikely. I think he even gave a podcast recently where he was talking about looking for some time off. So I'm not sure that's one that we go down. But yeah, for me, it's recruitment should be number one, not so much the manager. I think you can put a half-decent manager in charge of a good group of players and you'll get results. But if you put a good manager in front of a half-decent group of players, and maybe not.
Well, I'm going to come back to that, Andy, again, and stress you're absolutely spot on. Recruitment's hopeless, but it's what Barry Ferguson has been saying consistently since he's gone into the interim position is you need to be more than just a talented football player to be a good Rangers player. Now, I think he's 100% correct on that, and I think it's the exact same thing at Celtic. It's a heavy shirt to wear, and you've got to have more than just a wee bit of talent in order to fill it properly. And I think that's where you need people that have that understanding of the environment, of the pressures, of the demands, and they can look at a player, assess him in terms of his talent and qualities on the pitch, but also make a judgment and assessment on his character. Is this guy going to be able to cut it in this madhouse goldfish bowl environment that we've got here? And I think if you don't know those qualities that are required in order for someone to flourish in this environment, then how can you identify it in them? And again, I come back to you've got a group of guys there that I think, they can spot a player when they see one, but I think they know the extra things that are required for somebody to be a success in the Scottish League, in Glasgow, in this rivalry that they've got. These guys know it inside out. Perhaps the problem is that the people who are doing the recruiting don't have a clue about that side of it and what's really required in order to be a success. Celtic have got it right, but Rangers are miles off.
I think Barami is the prime example of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Clearly a talented technical player. He just looks like his heart's not in it. It looks like it's too big an ask for him to play for a club like
There's
Rangers.
a bunch of them. You know, your Lammers, talented boy, just couldn't fill the shirt. Robin Proper's another one that Rangers went out, paid him, a decent sum of money on him. Doesn't look as if he's ever going to be a Rangers player. And I think you could say the same about, I don't know, 10, 12, a dozen of these players right now in that squad. You look at them and say, they're just never going to make it. Plainly, never going to make it in this environment. And
I think Barry's spoke about that. You know, it's easy to get yourself up for Celtic games. It's easy to get yourself up for big European games. Where the squad is falling down is that necessity to go week after week, see a game at home to Dundee, at home to Ross County, as if that's a Champions League final. That's the attitude you have to have as a Rangers player, as a Celtic player. And far too many of these guys don't have that. They can't get themselves up. You see the way they start so many games, and we've seen it lately with this remarkable start. What is it now? I think it was 8 out of 11 now, where they've fallen 2-0 behind. So many of them it takes them half an hour. It takes them a half-time rollicking to get going. I just think that's, keeps entirely right. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of just the attitude that is required to play for. I'm not talking about even just Rangers and Celtic. I'm talking about winning teams. Winning teams turn up, win a game week in, week out. I mean, I know it's an obvious one, but they find a way to win week in, week out. Not just when the weather's nice, not just when there's a big crowd, not when they're feeling good about themselves. That's what this Rangers team lacks. That just desire, that gritty, that ability to battle when you're not at your best, when you're down to injuries, when you get suspensions, when your confidence is low. This is what this Rangers team lacks.
But you see the fundamental flaw here, Andy. If your recruitment, your guys that you've put in charge of recruitment don't know the qualities that they have to identify in a player, then that's a bad starting point, isn't it? So, and I think if it was the likes of, if Barry Ferguson was to get that job on the long, he would have a far more hands-on approach, because I also think there's a sort of culture of, well, nobody's really responsible. Nobody takes responsibility. And I think it's crucial that actually Rangers have people that will take responsibility. And if they sign a player and he's not up to it, say, that one's on me, I get that wrong. Because right now, who signed him? Was it a Clement signing? Was it a Niels Coppin? It's a cop-out. That's what it is. It's permanent cop-outs. Nobody's actually putting their name to anything and saying, yeah, this is my idea. And I think Rangers need to go back to that. And I think that they need people, as I said, to come back to the point, need people that can spot more than just a player. They need to have people in charge that can identify, yep, you're a player, have you got that extra thing that you're going to require in this league, in this environment? And if you don't know that, these are the qualities that you're looking for in a player, what chance you got?
Aye, I think that's a very fair point. We've got plenty of comments coming in this, and we really appreciate it. If you want to get involved in the discussion, please keep them coming. But we have to move on, guys. Time is getting away from us. And Keith, after yesterday's show, where we talked about Adam Ida, a comment, I've got quite a vociferous response on social media. Let me hit you with a couple. James says, I think we can agree 9 million was a crazy fee for Ida, but the board had to sign him after his impact last season. Will he be there next season, though? I have my doubts. Stuart says, Ida just isn't good enough or consistent enough, pure and simple. I'd take 3.5, 4 million for him this summer and cut, I think it means to say, our losses. Are you confident that Adam Ida will still be a Celtic player next season?
No. No.
Okay.
Well, I look at him and I think, oh, big man, give yourself a shake. all the qualities there, all the attributes, and it comes back to the conversation we've just been having. There's an X factor that's required. And Adam Ida, and this is the bit that I'm really finding frustrating, is that seeing the Rangers training ground, you look about and where's your examples, right? There's not that many, is there? Adam Ida is in a dressing room full of leaders and examples and standard setters. And you just need to look at the way Dyson Maida is going about his training on a day-by-day basis at Lennoxtown, and then the energy levels and the commitment that he shows on a match day. Same comes from Callum McGregor. The same comes all over that team. It's full of players that know what the requirements are and the standards. And Adam Ida, that's what's frustrating me. You don't need to look very far, big man, to see what's actually required here. And it's just, as I said to you, I feel like giving him a shake because I genuinely think there's a player in there, but I wonder about the levels of desire to better himself. And he's also got a manager there this is what he does. He makes players better. If you come to your work and you've got the right approach and the right attitude and you want to learn and you want to improve, Brendan Rodgers is your man. What an opportunity that is to work with a guy who specialises in making players better. Mm-hmm. And I'm just not seeing it. I just don't see the level of hunger and desire from Adam Ida every time he steps on the park.
I think you should be worried because I think you heard Rodgers last week talking about his determination is to make this team better. He wants to make additions. He wants to improve it. He doesn't want to stand still, which has been an accusation thrown at Celtic a couple of times in the past, maybe especially Rodgers' team first time round. They didn't make the signings that were going to take them on to the next level. I think, given what Celtic achieved this season, especially in the Champions League, he'll know what's required to go the next step again. And I think that should worry guys that if you're one of a nailed-on starter, if you're, as you say, a Maeda, if you're, okay, Nicholas Kuhn has been off the boil the last, 3-4 weeks, but, I think he's done enough this season to show what he can do. I think that somebody like Adam Ida, who's been in and out of the team, especially since Kyogo has left, I think that should concern him. If Brendan Rodgers is right about really taking things and kicking on again on another level, Adam Ida should be worried about being left behind.
It worries me, Andy, that what an opportunity when Kyogo's sold.
Yeah.
And you would
his jersey for keeps, and he let it slip.
Step up, claim it, own it. Mm-hmm. But he seems to, there's a kind of shrug of the shoulders, and is he that bothered about if he's left out of the starting 11? If you're not that bothered about being in the starting 11, you're at the wrong football club. Yeah. And that's my concern for Adam. I don't think it's a talent issue. I think he's got bags of it. He's got the physicality. He's powerful. He's a finisher. But there's something lacking, isn't there? There's just a big void somewhere. And I don't know how... Brendan Rodgers must be racking his brain because this is, as I said, Brendan Rodgers gets into players' psyche, he improves them. He sets standards that they've got to adhere to. I just don't think that Adam Ida is hitting the mark in terms of what Brendan Rodgers will be looking for. And that leads you to suspect very strongly that Celtic will throw the kitchen sink at least one new striker, maybe two. And where does that leave him? So, yeah, I think he's got the potential here between now and the end of the season. Brendan Rodgers has spoken about it already. 5 league games left before the cup final, and he's putting down markers for people. Performance targets, he's called it. And I think that conversation will probably take place tomorrow, and they'll discover exactly what's expected of them. And I think anybody who fails to hit the performance targets that the manager sets for them between now and the end of the league season, one, is unlikely to be involved when Celtic take on Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup final, and two, might have a problem going forward because Brendan Rodgers is serious about improving Celtic and taking them to that next level. And those that aren't up to the challenge or don't have the appetite for the battle are likely to be left behind and discarded. So I think there's a lot on these next few weeks. And I hope that Adam Ida has some sort of epiphany where he realises what an opportunity he's got, because it's not too late for him to save it, but he's not playing like a guy that wants to save it.
We've got plenty of comments coming in on this as well. Let me run through a couple. John says Ida scored some important goals in Celtic's Champions League campaign. Don't forget, expectations. This one says Ida is only good enough for the SPL. £9 million was crazy. I like Ida and hope he stays, but I do think if someone comes in with $6 million and Celtic will shake hands, he's a bit like our new Cascarino. This one from Hoopsaholic, he doesn't need to be first choice. He needs to be there when he's called upon. Fisgarden will be the new centre forward. And again, this one, good player, Ida, but you need to be better than good as Celtic star striker. A bit of gold dust, which I think is a fair point. He's actually got 16 goals this season, Ida, which is more than I thought, to be honest.
All the ingredients are there, and you've also got a manager who specialises in sprinkling gold dust on people. So that's what I'm saying. If he wants it badly enough, he's still got that opportunity. That is my question, Adam Ida. Do you want it badly enough?
He's also playing for a team that are averaging 3 goals a game in the league, something like that.
Loads of chances.
I mean, you'd be amazed if he's not got 16 goals this season. I mean, you're even thinking, is that not a bit the shy side? I mean, I know he's been in and out of the team, but you know, he must come on for the last 10 minutes of every game when he's on the bench. You know, you're trying to tell me that at that point Celtic are now racking up the chances against oppositions that are knackered. I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, in this Celtic team, if you're a centre forward and you've not got at the very least 20 goals for the season, I think that's short change.
Our club and country, it's 16 goals in 52 games.
Well,
which, aye.
Yeah.
Before we finish, though, guys, I want to take you to Serie A very briefly.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know if you saw it the weekend. Inter Milan lost 1-0 away at Bologna. Napoli won 1-0 at AC Monza with Scott McTominay scoring once again. And it means that in Serie A they're now tied on points at the top of the table. And if it finishes that way, it doesn't go to goal difference. If they finish tied in points, it goes to a one-off cup final to see who wins Serie A. And if McTominay and Gilmore could pull that off, it would just be amazing. Absolutely brilliant.
It's not even just that, is it? I believe it's 90 minutes only with no extra time. And if they're still level at the end, if it's a draw at the end of it, straight to penalty kicks.
Is it? Wow.
What a climax to the season that could be.
Can you imagine them doing that here?
Wow.
Rangers would need to get within touching distance of Celtic for that to happen right enough. But wow, yeah.
Listen,
way to decide it, isn't it?
Yeah, I watched Napoli against, I think it was Empoli last week. Billy Gilmore pulling the strings in midfield, doing exactly for Napoli what he does for Scotland in a dark blue shirt. McTominay scored 2. One of them was just out of this world header from Lukaku's cross. There's some team, and these two guys are absolutely thriving, and it's brilliant to see.
It's a great football city to be playing on. I was over there with Rangers a couple of years ago when they went there, and it's a great place to go and have a walk about. You see the Maradona shrine. I'm sure you all seen the images when they won Serie A a couple of years ago. I mean, if they won this in a sort of nail-biting finish, wow, you can imagine the party they'll have over there will be incredible.
It's like godlike status.
Yeah, 100%. It's literally a shrine to Maradona. You've got this wee alleyway. I'd recommend anybody who's going to Italy to swing by and take a look at it. It's an incredible bit of just football history. They've got this mural up on the wall. There's even a wee cafe next to it that you can sit and have an espresso with it. Brilliant, absolutely sensational.
Yeah, I think I saw something Billy Gilmore had given an interview, and he went to see that Diego Maradona shrine, and he went with his baseball cap, sunglasses, scarf and all that. He still got identified by the Napoli fans. They were still going crazy for him. And that's these guys are living pop star sort of lifestyles out there now, because the fans adore them. And you can see the confidence in them. They look terrific. And do you know what I'm going to, and this is going to sound like a daft thing, but maybe not in the context of what we were discussing previously. There are some football players that make playing football look like the hardest job in the world, don't they? And there's plenty of them, and not too far away from where we are just now. But they make it look like a bit of a chore. I look at Scott McTominay and Billy Gilmore, I just think, you boys love playing football. You just love it. It's ripping out of them.
You just look at McTominay especially and go, how mischaracterised was he at Old Trafford? You know, they had him this plodding sort of holding midfield role, and you're like, no, let him loose. It's Scotland have done as well, but you look at the potential of him now, what he's doing, he's the chance of him becoming a Serie A winner. I'm like, he was this sort of character that was Man United fans and They couldn't wait to get rid of him. I think it was
Yeah.
just because he was used entirely wrongly. They had the wrong perception of what he has and what he was capable as a footballer. And you look at the
Andy-
mess there, and you look at what he's now doing. It's, you know,
Andy,
what
I think
a
it's-
missed opportunity for Man United.
I think it's even worse than that, Andy. They were using him in a more forward position. He was weighing in. His goal contribution in his last season at Old Trafford was significant.
They get
He was
12
the
goals
guy-
last year. Aye.
He was the guy that was actually pulling them out of holes that they were
Aye.
digging themselves into. So it's worse than that. They did identify that that's probably the area of the pitch that he's going to operate at his best. They just didn't think it was good enough for Man United because it wasn't a name, or they wanted a. Scott McTominay was Man United's best player, and they allowed him to walk.
Yeah.
And he's now the driving force behind the Napoli charge towards the Scudetto. It's incredible. What a mistake to make.
Wow. On that note, guys, I think that brings us to the end.
Flipper rules that one.
Where's our pal Gianni, Keith? I dare say he'd have an opinion on that. But anyway, I think that brings us to the end of today's hotline. Sorry, that's actually not me for six. If I could get that a ringtone, Keith, I'd appreciate it. That brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you very much for all of the comments as usual. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back to do it all again at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Keith, Andy, it's always a pleasure.
We'll see you tomorrow, Dan.
Cheers, boys.
Thanks. Cheers,
Andy.
guys. And thanks for watching. Cheers.